Ladies and gentlemen, we believe that the spirit of this debate does not lie upon what the Korean government has been doing in the past in relation to the gaming industry, but rather about what direction they should be heading toward from now on, ladies and gentlemen. So esports include professional leagues, ones that are like the Olympics that work online. Some examples include StarCraft, Warcraft, and Counter-Strikes, and more. So we support the motion this House would illegalize esports basically, and our purpose is to take measures to stop the negative effects that online gaming can give, and by negative effects we obviously mean ones that can create social harms, thus ones that the government actually does have the legitimacy to regulate. So obviously we are going to need to control the excessive use of online games that can lead to social crimes by slowly putting regulations. But first, what we are going to do is ban the esports industries because it magnifies the very problems that we are trying to tackle in the current status quo, and this will be explained in our following arguments. So we basically have three arguments, and the first argument is that esports is the cause of game addiction, ladies and gentlemen. And the second argument is that the addiction leads to crimes, and third is about the government's duty. So let's directly move on to the first argument. The first argument is that the esports is not the cause of game addiction, ladies and gentlemen. So in this argument, we are going to explain how games are addictive in nature, but organized professional esports competitions only adds up to the problem because it encourages further addiction. First of all, games themselves are addictive in nature. It's easily accessible. It's already a culture between male students in Korea, and it is violent, and it is exciting, and it is also very cheap to have access to. So ladies and gentlemen, we believe that they are very addictive in nature. So gaming is already quite dangerous as it is, and it calls for addiction. But with the development of the esports industry, an organized professional esports competition only brings up new complications, encourages further addiction because of its nature and the kind of unconscious message it holds. Because what Korea is doing now, it glorifies esports, ladies and gentlemen. They are making leagues, sponsors, international gaming competitions, opportunities for foreign gaming industries to come and invest their money in Korea. And they are also subsidizing the game industries to come and to create even more games, ladies and gentlemen. And all over the world, Korea is being advertised as the leading game nation. Youngsters and the children of Korea are not oblivious to this fact.
On the point, ma'am.
Yes.
We see there are other games that are also excessive, but we don't see that there are esports in those kinds of games. About, like, for example, Maple Story or Diablo. How can you explain all those phenomena?
So, ladies and gentlemen, we are basically saying that the esports that the government is trying to promote, and what the government has the responsibility, duty, and the justification to control, which is because it has the social harms that we will explain further on throughout our debate. We need to work on the esports industry at first, as we have already mentioned in our policy, ladies and gentlemen. So all over the world, Korea is being advertised, and we do know this fact. So it gives the unconscious message that esports is the blue ocean and a very successful business that Korea itself is enthusiastically supporting.
Here.
So, moreover, pro gamers themselves are being treated like celebrities. Look at Im Yoo-hwan, a programmer who has risen to stardom and has tons of fans. Other famous gamers earn at least $30,000 and even up to $1 million per year. Just like the way a lot of children want to be celebrities because of the emergence of idol stars in Korea. And there are a lot of children who want to become programmers right now because they are treated as the celebrities. Surveys show that one of the top 10 jobs primary school students want, professional gamer is the 10th, which can think that how many jobs, if we consider that how many jobs are out there, it is a very huge amount. So, however, the problem with this is that the students are actually misinterpreting this. They think that the programming industry is such a lucrative, potentially successful business, and they have more reasons and incentive to enter into the gaming world. However, they have the wrong idea about what is needed to become a pro gamer. They don't think that the games are something that require highly intense training and mental concentration and strategy making, but rather just playing games a lot for hours and hours and hours, just stuck in the PC rooms. But in reality, it's not like that. Becoming a pro gamer requires professional trainings and coaches, and only a very few people actually become successful gamers.
Exactly,
then for the
ma'am.
students who don't reach these positions because they have a mixed up idea about what it takes to be a pro gamer, they're just left as game addicts who have time they've realized that what they've been chasing is just an ideal. Just an ideal.
Point, ma'am.
It's too late, ladies and gentlemen. They've probably already become severely addicted to gaming in this point, ladies and gentlemen. So at the end of the day, we have a government who did nothing to control the esports industry, and we have a huge esports industry, and pro gamers portrayed as celebrities, and we have vulnerable children without proper supervision who fall into this illusion that they can also become successful pro gamers, but end up becoming nothing more than hopeless addicts, ladies and gentlemen. So moving on to second argument, the addiction leads to crimes. Being addicted is not the last stage of processes, but it would eventually lead to violent actions of these teenagers. The game addicts have a problem in the frontal lobe, the part of the brain that helps you to make a right choice and control emotions. When researchers took a computer tomography of the brains of the addicts, this part was underdeveloped and similar to drug addicts and alcoholics. So gaming is different from other sports, ladies and gentlemen, in the sense that it actually damages your brain. This leads to impulsive crimes, like for example, a brother thought they could revive a baby after it is dead, just like we turn on the game and restart the game and revive the game, and he killed his own baby brother. The students get the false illusion that no matter what brutal things that you do in the reality, you can revive it, just like the gaming industry is promoting. So, ladies and gentlemen, so if there is an activity in excess that leads to social crimes, social harms, the government should not be encouraging this activity in any way, especially in organizement of this activity. So we believe that the activity only creates social harms and therefore should be banned. And that is why we strongly propose. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we, the opposition, believes that the government today has two burdens. First, they should prove how and why the esports industry actually does harms and influences these people to actually go and become these addicts. Second, they must prove how, even if there are harms, why we should ban the entire industry and we should not take any alternative methods. And we believe that today, the proposition have failed to answer both questions, which leads to our conclusion that illegalizing the entire industry is just a blanket policy. And there are the benefits that the esports industry is bringing, ladies and gentlemen, and this is why we oppose today. So today, we came up with three arguments, which are first, the freedom of the companies, and second, how this serves as a good source of entertainment. And finally, our second speaker will talk about how there are actually benefits with the esports industry. Now, but before I move on to any of these parts, I would like to first rebut to the points mentioned by the Prime Minister. Now, the Prime Minister talked about two things. First, the game addiction, and second, how these two crimes. First, about game addiction. Now, we see that, yes, game has an addictive nature, yeah, but we believe that they has failed to actually give us the clear link on what is actually promoting these people to actually go on and become the pro gamers. They're just excessively using 20 hours a day, ladies and gentlemen. We believe that they talked about how these people are portrayed as if they're celebrities, earning a lot of money. Yes, yes, ladies and gentlemen. But, ladies and gentlemen, we believe that there are natural checks and balances. Individuals, first, they actually have the ability to differentiate themselves from these pro gamers. As they mentioned, they know that there are other people who are needed, the professional trainers, all these people are needed, and they know that they have different talents with these people. This is the exact reason why people just not ran out and played soccer after the 2002 World Cup, ladies and gentlemen. We see that people have the ability, and also about the teenagers that they really love about, we believe that these teenagers are under the provision of their parents, ladies and gentlemen. We see that these teenagers won't actually just go on and play excessive amounts of games on and on. We believe that the characterization coming from the government side is not valid in today's debate. Second, even if there are certain harms, we believe that the harms that they talked about exist also in the other industry, ladies and gentlemen. As they mentioned before, K-pop industry is becoming a large industry, which is taking up a great amount of our entertainment industry. However, we believe that these K-pop industry, we do not ban this K-pop industry because of the fact that this just influences but not forces people to just go on and play excessive use of game, ladies and gentlemen. And this will be further mentioned in my arguments. No, thank you. And finally, we would like to just first talk about that the crime that they talked about, frontal lobe being distorted. We believe that that these games, there are games which people actually excessive use already without the esports industry, such as Diablo 3 and MapleStory. And are they actually going to ban all those because of the excessive use, and it leads to addiction somehow according to their analogy? No, thank you. Now, we believe that even if that's the problem about teenagers, then why should we actually ban the entire industry? We believe that we must actually go on and restrict teenagers from playing these games, or else we can actually pursue the cooling off policy or the shutdown policy in the status quo, which the government is actually pursuing, ladies and gentlemen. Yes.
Esports itself is being broadcasted through our live to these children, and it itself is being influential through these.
Yes, so of course, ladies and gentlemen, it influences people, but it doesn't actually these people to actually just go on and play excessive use of game. As I mentioned before, there are natural checks and balances. And if the teenagers are the problem, then go on and ban the teenagers, not the entire industry, ladies and gentlemen. So this leads to our first argument of how there is actually the freedom of companies, ladies and gentlemen. But what we see today in today's debate is that without the detrimental harms to society, there should not be any restrictions on the actions of the companies. And as I mentioned before, there are different causes of the excessive use of games. It's not because of the fact that games have the wide popularity, it leads to the esports industry. No, what we say in today's debate is because it's not because esports industry is there, the gaming is popularity. Rather, the fact that that industry is actually investable. That company, industry, no thank you, that industry is actually profitable. That is making large companies to come in, ladies and gentlemen. We have told you the examples of Diablo 3, MapleStory, where there are no esports industry, but there is already the excessive use of games, ladies and gentlemen. We believe that maybe it might be something so fun or something, but actually, are they going to actually ban the entire game industry? We say no. We believe that, as I mentioned before, also these individuals have the checks and balances because they know that they're different from these professional gamers. And we see that this is equal in other industries too. No, thank you. We see that there are parents who can actually control the actions of these people. And we believe that influence is a natural character in our society, natural character in the influence society in the world. We believe that this is not this problem special to games, and all industries share that character. There are harms in the other industries in this sense, like hackers competition is being legalized in the status quo, even though it actually promotes the excessive use of the internet, which is becoming a serious problem in the status quo. They're not doing it because they are not actually banning it. This is because of the fact that there is influence, but this not leads to these people actually just going on and doing this. And are they actually going to ban this hackers competition too? And second, we see that there is a benefit that we can earn from these entertainment. We know the esports industry is becoming an international trend, growing trend in the status quo. All people, regardless of their gender, age, and race, are actually participating. They're very, very happy because they know that they're different from the professional gamers. They actually feel a sort of happiness through other people actually playing well. They know that they can't do that, but actually these other people are actually going on and actually showing this, and we believe that this is one of the benefits that we can earn from the entertainment industry. We believe that this benefit that it poses on the entertainment industry, on the society, and there is no clear link between the esports industry and the game addictions, we are proud to oppose. Thank you.
Today we have the governing team from the opposition, from who simply contradicts themselves when they're encouraging the esports industry. They're actually curing these children and at the same time trying to stop gaming as well. They put these regulations and at the same time they're encouraging the esports industry. So we believe that is a great contradiction from the opposition team. Now, before I go on to my arguments, I would like to rebut the previous speaker. They have asked us what about MapleStory and the games that don't have relations with those esports industry. However, first of all, in our policy, we said we would implement regulations in the game itself so that we could actually acknowledge the problem of gaming itself. Secondly, esports is bringing broadcasting through these media and glorifies the gaming itself and actually emphasizes how gaming is such a good thing. And that is why, since esports is encouraging such a problem in the society, we would ban esports itself, not the whole thing about game. They also talked about provision of parents. However, we believe it is too optimistic to say so because provision of parents itself is being a problem. That is why we have regulations like shutdown policies and so on. And we never said that we would ban the game industry itself. What we actually said is that we would actually have regulations over game itself and actually ban esports since it is actually encouraging the whole gaming problem. Yes.
Well, if the biggest problem that you stated is about the teenagers, then why do you have to put a blanket policy that takes away the right of entertainment of the adults also?
Of course, I get your point. Of course, entertainment is a good thing, ladies and gentlemen. We're not saying that entertainment is bad. However, excessive of these things lead to addiction. And as our Prime Minister has explained, it is going to lead to addiction and more crimes and more of the social problems that we would face in the future. No, thank you. And now I'd like to go on to our team's third argument, which is about the government's duty. Now, what we should focus on here is that the government is being extremely immoral and irresponsible by promoting this e-sport industry when they themselves are already understanding the evil impacts it has upon the Korean society. Now, we basically believe that society's well-being is much more important than earnings a little bit of money in these kind of e-sport industry and a little bit of development in these industries. We would rather believe that the government should not be sacrificing citizens and our children by making them to face addiction problems and diverse effects. The government is having a contradictory stance when they are having actions to stop gaming itself, at the same time encouraging it as well through esports. Now, let me prove how the government is acting immoral at the status quo by explaining about two issues. Now, first of all, the issue about how the government is sacrificing innocent children over money. The opposition team will probably argue the economic prosperities of this industry that brings to the nation. Thus, we should not ban it. However, but once again, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about our nation and our children. It is our future, and they are saying that it is okay for us to actually encourage addiction. And we say that esport itself, since it is broadcasting, we see a problem where children are being influenced by this particular issue. Money will be naturally brought into the country once we actually educate these children, once we actually make these children nurture them and raise our children into the right direction. This money problem that they would actually think about is actually going to be solved once we actually promote such policy and have increased imports and out of our products in the future, once we nurture these children, not to just encourage them to be addicted. Now, what's even more problematic from the opposition team is that esport industry, the Korean government is so in favor of it, comprised mostly by StarCraft, an American company, ladies and gentlemen. It has known to be that StarCraft takes over 70% of the Korean esport. And we see a problem here where the Korean government is simply blinded by the money that comes to foreigners and the foreigners coming into the nation. They're just blinded by the industry itself, not about the problem that we are currently facing. And they are not facing the reality where our children are under danger. Now, secondly, let's talk about the Korean government's paradoxical behavior. The Korean government, specifically the Ministry of Culture and Tourism, has been founding events such as the World Cyber Games and furthermore supported esports by giving professional players tax deductions and hosting these esport events in Korea. Now, not only this, but the Korean National Assembly also actually in the legislation in 2011 for the promotion, they passed a law for the promotion of esports to lay a foundation for the esport industry and help its competitiveness. Now, we can clearly see how they're actually encouraging esports, encouraging addiction, and encouraging more of a devastating effect in our society. Now, we say that these actions are quite contradictory to what they have been saying until now, where they had these regulations about shutdowns and these kind of efforts that they have to have a deduction of these addiction. Now, the Korean government asserts on the danger of online gaming and tries to solve this problem through establishment of game curfews, restriction of teenagers' access to PC rooms after a certain hour, and persuading companies to have warning signs within the games. However, they themselves are the leading promoters of online games by advocating for propaganda for pro-gaming industry. How inconsistent is this, ladies and gentlemen? How are they trying to really stop game addiction for our children, and they are promoting these pro-gaming industry as celebrity-like people, looking very glamorous and glorifying it at the first place. Moreover, the Korean government is currently trying to cure the already addicted children by offering various therapy programs. But it itself is very interesting to see how the government deliberately acts to make our citizens get addicted and then tries to cure it. It's like the Korean government is carrying fire in one hand and water in the other. Now, saying this and acting in another is a very irresponsible and confusing stance for the government team to take and for the opposition team to take. Now, at the end of the day, it boils down to the question of what kinds of values the government has the duty to protect. We, the proposition, proposes the value of protecting citizens over money, not being contradictory toward their own stance. And that is why we are proud to propose. Thank you.
Ooh, what we saw in this like opposition government team today is that they're gonna, like, in their model, they're gonna ban idol stars because they're too addictive. You're gonna ban all these kinds of other industries that are also addictive because they're addictive. I think that if I eat broccoli for 72 hours, I'm gonna die. But everything is very bad if you do it too much. But what we think is that if we just do it the right amount and enjoy that as an entertainment, then we think that is good. And esport does not entertain all those kinds of excessive usage. And let me prove to you all how they misinterpreted and misunderstood what the true meaning of esport is. So naturally, three things that they talked about. First, about how esport is harm. But ladies and gentlemen, they never differentiated what clearly about all the different differentiate our first speaker already made clearly. The only thing that they said is glorifying. But ladies and gentlemen, if the second speaker in the government team says, I'm going to be an idol star, I think he probably does not have that dream because he knows the reality in the first place. And second, we think that these kinds of, his parents will also stop him because he has talent in debate also. So these kinds of other methods where people show that we have a differentiation, that we have natural check and balance, won't people not go to become professional people just right away?
Sir.
No, thank you. We also think that secondly, they talked about this addiction problem our first speaker already explained. But ladies and gentlemen, they further talked about how crime, but they never explained why esport promotes that research and promotes crime. Because that's just a natural game, and some specific games are too excessive. We think that if they're going to go with that policy, they're going to say that they're going to ban games, which is practically impossible. So unless you just ban games, their second argument cannot stand. Thirdly, now the second speaker comes up and say it's a government duty to save innocent people. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to debate in the first time, you got to see natural, all these kinds of different stakeholders, not only teenagers, but adults or other kinds of people. So in these kinds of situations, we got to see firsthand, we think that they did not acknowledge the point that there are adults who should also be prioritized. And secondly, we think that we told you that esport does not promote excessive usage. So people and even teenagers can play under the restriction that our first speaker already talked about, cooling off system and all these different kinds of systems, so that they can not use the games as not excessive but a good entertainment. And ladies and gentlemen, they also talked about how we're just government supporting this blind industry. Well, are you calling a $34 billion worth a blind industry? We think that if they're calling these game industry ignore completely and say we got to promote children to debate more, you got to promote children to educate more so that they can lead the future of Korea. What we think is that you can better also accept the rights of the children and the adults to use these games very wisely as an entertainment. And secondly, we think that game industry is also a great industry, a potential industry that we have to protect. Let me talk you further about my third argument, which is how benefits to the excessive users. But ladies and gentlemen, they continue to talk about how it's bad for the excessive users, but they never explained on how they can solve excessive in this first place. But what we think in my third argument will prove on how excessive users can be solved by our esports. But further on, they tried to nitpick about 2 points that our first speaker clearly talked about. First, the freedom of company. The only thing they said is that $34 billion worth industry is nothing. We think that there's a different idea than in the first place. Because this kind of industry, if it doesn't harm the people, as we just proved to you, then we should promote this healthy industry to better grow the Korean economy, not just abandon it with the examples, with the blanket policies. And secondly, we told you about how it is a good source of entertainment, but they just ignored this fact and say it's excessive usage. We already proved that that's not the case. Now, let me go on to my constructive argument, which is the third benefits to the excessive users. So ladies and gentlemen, the government role is not to just ban an industry which is totally healthy and good for the people. It told you that it does not motivate excessive users. But what we think is that actually it can help more excessive users to calm down and to actually help them to even prevent potential users. Now, ladies and gentlemen, until the end of the debate, they continuously, they continuously said excessive usage is so bad. They said it's bad, it's killing you, but did they provide a policy? Yes?
This excessive use is actually encouraged by the esport industry, which is broadcasting and influencing these children.
Well, I saw the Pro League yesterday. It was a broadcast every day, but I didn't see my friends suddenly saying, I'm going to be tourist, I'm going to be Park Ji-sung, and going all these kinds of fields and start playing soccer and every time. Within all these situations, they could not understand, and they could not prove the exclusiveness of the game, just say it's glorifying. That's same with other industries too, partly. And let me go on to continue to talk about arguments. So we told you that actually esport can solve excessive usage better when they actually ignored the thing. So let me prove to you 2 points on how we can solve better to the esports and for the excessive users. First hand, we think that to the excessive users, these kinds of people are people who doesn't care about their jobs. These people who doesn't care, cannot control themselves. There is no fount of control right now, without the esports. What we think is that esports can provide a better environment, a better source of job for them. Firstly, the job point. We think that these people cannot focus on jobs, even though they're esports or not, because it's not promoting excessive usage. But what we see is that if there is esports and hire them as professional gamers, what we think is that firstly, we can provide them a stable job source to be an active member of the society. And secondly, because they are part of a players, then the team of the guy, like esport, will try to control his health and check his balance and all these kinds of excessive usage that he did now to actually better conditionize this guy and to play more better games. We think that it's actually beneficial for the current excessive users. But not only that, secondly, we think that it should be better for the potential level to prevent potential users. So we're trying to prevent potential users, and for that to happen, the government needs all its different kinds of policies. For example, campaigns, facilities, and professional advisors, which is taking so much money. What we're trying to do here is that if we're going to give tax on the esport industries and collect some money, then we think that the government can use this money and utilize this so that it can help potential and prevent potential excessive users. So at the end of the debate, ladies and gentlemen, they always they said like excessive users are bad, but did they prove any kinds of points where they can solve the policy? No. But what we can is save these excessive users firsthand and to view these rights of the adults and even a good entertainment source for the teenagers, which they did not rebut. And lastly, about how esport is not directly nor just like even influencing enough to actually make people suddenly become tourists or to suddenly become immuan. So at the end of the debate, we think that we won and clearly missed the point about the link between esport and the game of being addictive. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, today's debate boils down into three main clashes. The first being about the entertainment qualities of esports itself, whether it's entertainment or if it's much more, if it's something much more evil. The second clash was about government intervention, whether people can really do this on their own, which we view a very optimistic and very unlikely situation, whether people can do it on their own or if this is something that is serious enough that the government needs to prevent, like every other aspect that the government does intervene in society. And the third clash is about the economic values, the economic issues, whether we can really prioritize money and these sort of things above our children's health, our children's minds, and our children's proper future. And now we believe that because all three clashes were won by the government team, we believe that it will be the government team who will take this debate home. Now starting with the first clash about the entertainment qualities of esports. Now they made two main points while explaining the so-called entertainment qualities. The first point was that the people who see esports, they're not doing it because they think that they can become that much good, but because they're just going to watch it and feel this sort of alternative pleasure just seeing other people who are good at them. However, we think that this is not true. Seeing people who are very good at esports gaming, seeing that there's a very wide door to the point of esports industries itself, seeing that it's becoming a blue ocean, seeing South Korea promoted all over the world as the leading game industry. Ladies and gentlemen, a few years ago, when South Korea's esports industry was not as big as it is now, there weren't many children who wanted to be professional gamers. But now what's happening? The media is announcing to the whole world, to the whole of Korea, that Korea's sales of these games, of these things are becoming extremely popular, and that these professional gamers, they're all coming from Korea. Yes.
Then because we won the London Olympic, the bronze
yes,
medal, do you think that professional people
about that point, about soccer players, about just players, about wanting to become like that, just because there are people, the opposition team seems to think that just because there are people around them who don't act like that, who aren't influenced by, for example, esports or just sports in general, that doesn't mean that there aren't children like that in Korea as a whole. We told you. In fact, in a research done very recently, we told you that of the 10 top jobs that primary school students want to be, professional gaming itself was 10th, following things like teachers or doctors or many other prominent these sort of occupations. And so we believe that when this sort of entertainment, it can lead to it's not just entertainment, it's not just watching, it's about wanting to be like them. And the problem with wanting to be like them is that it's not just what kids think, it's not just about being locked up in PC rooms and just playing games all day and all night. There's actually esports itself, to be a good player, you need professional training, all that stuff. But because children don't notice that, there are a lot of children who are just playing esports because this itself is encouraging. This itself is making the esports industry look like a very good industry. And the problem with this is that because many people don't eventually become professional gamers, what we're left with is addicts, children who are impressionable, children who are falling under this sort of lure of the esports industry itself. And what we have is these addicts. It doesn't end as a personal problem, ladies and gentlemen. It ends as a social problem. We've already seen so many children addicts, these people who are going around killing their families, killing other people around them because they've lost their sense of control. And moreover, and so what the opposition team is saying as a whole is that people only enjoy this as an entertainment. But we like to refute this by saying that entertainment by nature, it needs to be pure and it shouldn't be hurting the people. But as we have sufficiently explained to you, the esports industry, it encourages more gaming for susceptible children. And this leads to more addiction and as a result, more social crimes. And the second clash of today's debate was about government intervention, whether it's actually justified. Now, their very unrealistic point of view was that there's a natural checks and balance system and that parents and children can take care of them on their own. We wanted to refute this in 2 different points. First of all, if parents could take care of this on their own, there wouldn't be addiction problems today, ladies and gentlemen. That's why we did the shutdown system in the first place. Because parents, they can't always control this, and it's very unrealistic to expect that they will. Secondly, children. Do we really think children are that mature enough that if the government doesn't put any sort of intervention, then they can decide on their own? Oh, obviously, I can't really become a pro gamer, so I shouldn't do it. We believe that they're overestimating the children way too much and not seeing the actual influence it's giving. And the second point they made about the illegitimacy of government intervention is that there are other games that don't have esports, then what about these games? But what we want to ask them is that if there is some sort of line that the government can control, if there are esports activities that the government can control, like MapleStory, Diablo, even if they don't have it, there are other games that do have these esports industries. And while they are in their control, we believe that the government, while they're in their control, that the government should regulate it because of the reasons that we've given above. And lastly, they talked about why hurt the gamers? Why hurt the gamers when it's actually the teenagers' fault?
On the point, ma'am.
Well, actually, it's the gamers themselves. The gamers themselves, they themselves becoming glorified like celebrities. They themselves making it look like a really good professional job. This is itself is what's influencing these teenagers, what's influencing these people more and more to believe that this is a good industry, something that they should try. But as we've already explained, that's not usually what happens. And the reality is that most of these children just turn out to be addicts because of this wrong impression they have. And the last clash is about the economic values. We believe that this argument from the beginning, it fails. Because what they're doing is they're prioritizing money and these sort of things above the actual development of societal safety, of these children's like proper growing and all these things, and they're putting it above money. We believe that no matter how lucrative an industry can be, if it's a bad industry, then it needs to be banned. Just like the way, for example, the drug industry can be an extremely big industry, but does that provide us justification for us to continue it when it can give clear harms? And moreover, they said that we can take tax from esports and then use that money to prevent further addiction. Once more, another contradictory stance from the opposition team. They're trying to create the problem. They're not trying to solve the problem when it's happening right now. And then they're saying, oh, we can use that money later and try to prevent it later. Well, once again, it's another tactic with fire in one hand and water in another. Just like the way they said that we already have alternatives like the shutdown system and all these things, it's contradictory to their own stance because they seem to want to prevent these sort of dangerous effects of gaming, but at the same time, they're actually doing nothing. They're in fact just prioritizing money, our country's economic growth, these money, instead of the actual bad effects that gaming can give. And so we believe that for these clashes, the government team takes this debate home. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we believe that we broke the opposition team's arguments by 3 levels. First of all, the game doesn't have that genuine harm that they've been talking about and that the problem of addiction was exaggerated. Second of all, that the esports didn't incur those problems that they stated. And third of all, that even if teenagers were such a problem, that the blanket policy isn't justified. So I have 2 clashes to explain this. First of all, why the esports industry doesn't have anything to do with the problems that stated by the government. Second of all, why demonizing games itself is a very harmful thing to do and a wrong thing to do by the government side. First of all, as our first speaker said, and not dealt through on with the third speaker of the government side, we believe that there's a wrong cause and effect process in the first place. Because if you look at the example of MapleStory and Diablo 3, because the esports industry companies don't go there and make that addiction, make that popularity. The games are already popular, and because it's so profitable from the start, that's when the esports industries go in. So basically, the esports industry didn't incur that large game industry. The game industries actually incurred that profitable amount of things so that the esports industries could come in. And the only justification that they said was that esports industry leading to addiction was that they glorified the occupation of professional gamers. Well, look at the examples of soccer leagues, boxing leagues, hacking competitions. We say that in these cases, many teenagers don't actually just unsensibly go through these things. And also, we glorify many occupations, ladies and gentlemen. We glorify lawyers, we glorify doctors, we glorify professors. However, just because the government or the society actually glorifies those occupations, it doesn't mean that the children just unbindedly just go to those occupations just because someone glorifies those acts. Because we know that, first of all,
Because we know that these people are sensible enough to know about their own skills, to know about that they're not right for that occupation. And very sadly, many people actually think that the picture that the pro gamers are given, that they should be condemned, that they're just game addicts that get money for it. Sadly, many in society also basically thinks that. And because of this, pro gamers aren't as glorified as many other occupations such as doctors, lawyers, or professors. We see that many people actually don't go to pro gamers in this status quo. And with the only justification of statistics they say is that the pro gamers are under the top 10 list of occupations in primary schools. Exactly. Many people many elementary school people might be suddenly shaken by that glorification. But in the end, we believe that many children and also parents know the sad reality that these people shouldn't be that glorified. They also know that the pro gamers also have really nothing to do after 5 years and after they lost their popularity. Because the parents and the children know this reality, we know that these teenagers won't suddenly go to that occupation just because a society glorified it. And moving on to why the blanket policy doesn't make sense. Well, first of all, because they didn't justify the reason itself, we believe that the motion that they proposed doesn't stand. But also, if teenagers were such a problem because they didn't really deal with any other problems of the adults, or if teenagers are such a problem, why just restrict that esports industry, for example, to the teenagers? We do that with porn, we do that with violent videos that are also broadcasted nationally from cable TV, but we put ratings, we put restrictions on those things, and they actually work, and the parents can regulate those people. And if we see a direct problem, wait a bit, sir, if we actually see a direct problem in addiction, then solve that directly by actually putting on a cooling off process or Cinderella law for these examples, and actually restrict those teenagers from playing too much games, but don't just go ban and illegalize an industry that doesn't even really have direct linkages with the addiction problems. Yes, sir.
First of all, it's a contradiction from the opposition team to actually have fire in one hand and water in the other. And it's also the esport industry that is encouraging such a problem and making these children to be addicted. And we see a problem there.
I just rebutted why the esports industry doesn't lead to game addiction, because glorification doesn't always lead to addiction, as we can see in the status quo. That's why your POI doesn't stand. So let me move on to my second clash about demonizing games itself is very bad. Well, they talked about the game. Well, we see that they didn't talk about the problem of games itself. They also acknowledged that if you just do it in a very moderate way, in a very restricted time, that it can be very beneficial. They acknowledged the entertainment issue, but they talked about excessive use of games. Addiction of games is very bad, and we know that excessive use of anything is bad. If you cycle or you play soccer, if you eat broccoli for 24 hours anything can kill you. However, ladies and gentlemen, we know that these extreme cases are very limited. And although we acknowledge that addiction can be a very bad thing, they never justified in the fact that that bad addiction itself is such a big problem in our society, because we see that it isn't a national epidemic as the government side characterized it. And moving on, we believe that actually also demonizing pro gaming as a job, condemning that thing itself, is a very wrong thing for the government to do. We believe that this is a very legitimate job, and we should also think about the rights of the gamers. And in the end, well, they say that, first of all, because the gaming industry led to game addiction of teenagers, we should ban that industry. I rebutted to that, saying that, first of all, that glorification of an occupation doesn't always lead to every single teenager going to that occupation. Second of all, I talked about why it isn't justified to have a blanket policy that restricts every single person to enjoy the esports industry itself, because they are the rights of the adults and the rights of those people who aren't that addicted of games. And also, we also talked about various alternatives that actually directly solve the problem of addiction, rather than just going indirectly and just assuming a cause of a problem wrongly and trying to destroy that thing when there are more benefits than harms. And also, I talked about why demonizing gaming industry itself and saying that the problem of excessive use of gaming and the addiction of gaming itself leads to the assertion that gaming itself is bad. So basically, we broke down the government case in 3 ways. First of all, that gaming itself doesn't have that much genuine harm, and that the addiction is exaggerated. Second of all, the esports industry didn't lead to that game addiction, and it will not lead to teenagers just blindly moving to that occupation. And third of all, that even if all those things that the government wrongly assumed is true, that we shouldn't put a blanket policy on the industry, because it is harmful, much more harmful for the majority of our population. Thank you.
So we see the government today as actually going forward banning these all industries that actually influence people, and it glorifies certain actions. We see the government has failed to actually answer to our question of how it's different with other industry, ladies and gentlemen. We have pose a burden on them that they should prove to us how it's different with the K-pop industry, how it's different with other industries that are actually being legalized in the status quo. But no response from the start, ladies and gentlemen. And we say that there were certain questions that had to be solved but were not be able to be solved by the proposition side. Now, those questions are first, how is it actually leading to addiction? And second, how and should they actually ban the entire industry? Now, first, about addiction. Now, we see that they talked on and on about how there are actually glorification. These people earning a lot of money and all these things, and it's how this is so bad. However, we see that influence is natural in the interactive society. What we see in today's debate is that just influence does not mean that everyone just goes on and excessively use these games, ladies and gentlemen. What we see is that there are natural checks and balances within these people. They answer to our question of how these children are actually recognizing the status quo, how they have differences with these professional gamers. However, the only response that they came was that because it was not enough, that's why we are actually going for the shutting off policy. But we see that that's regardless of the existence of the esports industry, that has problems, and it's unrelated with the esports industry. We have given you the examples of MapleStory and Diablo 3, where these industries are not developed, but people actually still excessively use it. And second, we see that these addictions have individual differences, where they can't just assert that games have specialty that they are going for, that this is so addictive, ladies and gentlemen. We believe that there was no clear link provided by the government side that just glorification, we see that is not enough. We believe that the Korean government actually going for the K-pop industry. They're glorifying it. They're actually according to their stance, they're actually promoting inappropriate dances to teenagers, ladies and gentlemen. So why don't we ban it? This is because the individuals don't actually just go on and participate, ladies and gentlemen. And second, we have told you and asked the government side to answer to this simple question. Why should it be banning? We have told you that these benefits exist in the first place. Now, they said that these benefits cannot be justified if there is a clear harm. But first, we say that they have failed to actually prove that clear harm. And second, the only harm that they talked about was only focused on these teenagers, focused on these people who are considered minority. We say there's first natural checks and balances, and they have never answered to the question of why we can't just put on age restrictions on these games. Why can't we actually go forward and push these shutdown policy, and cooling off policy to actually work, ladies and gentlemen? We believe that this answer that wasn't actually clearly answered by the government side actually does not, so this makes that their case very vulnerable. Not only this, but also we have told you that there is an additional benefit. If there are certain individuals who actually excessively use the games, regardless of the esports industry, as an example, MapleStory and Diablo 3, why don't we actually make a legal framework for that these people can actually work and contribute to our society in terms of entertainment and all these sources, ladies and gentlemen? We believe that the stance coming from the government side today, they have failed to prove how there is a clear harm, and even if that's true, how there are actually solving the problem, and it is the only inevitable way. So we are proud to oppose. Thank you.
Before starting the debate, ladies and gentlemen, let's make one point clear. The opposition supported the economic values and entertainment values of esports at first, but the whip exactly stated that we should just ban it for the teenagers. What kind of stance is this, ladies and gentlemen? And also, they are also stating that the children are wise enough and they are able to make logical decisions for themselves. Therefore, the government should not intervene in it. And they are also supporting the esports industry and how it has the entertainment values. But they are now saying, they have been continuously saying that we should just ban it for the teenagers. Ladies and gentlemen, what kind of stance is this from the opposition? We did not hear, we believe that their whole case fails because they made this major contradiction. So, what will the society look like if the government ignores the excessive promotion of the esports industries and keeps on with the industry for its economic benefits that is going on? Ladies and gentlemen, the opposition today is accusing the proposition for not being able to connect how the esports excessive use is bad and how banning esports would lead to no addiction, and also how esports lead to addiction from the first place, ladies and gentlemen. But we did see the opposition's government that is very irresponsible, as we have clearly shown how esports is being promoted in the current status quo and how the government is actually doing this. We have given you how this would move on to building social crimes, and therefore government has a legitimacy and has a justification for intervening in the first place. So this debate comes down into two fundamental questions, ladies and gentlemen. The first, which is more important, the freedom of company or the health of the citizens? The society's order, perhaps, ladies and gentlemen. The opposition did not see the status quo in the clear way from the first place. We believe that the 80% of the addiction are nowadays created by the teenagers, among the teenagers. And we believe that the addiction is a huge problem, creating social harms, not only personal health problems and personal health harms, but also the social harms. We're talking about the society's criminals, and we have the companies only trying to glorify the esports and advertising. And ladies and gentlemen, we believe that at least esports and should be banned. Ladies and gentlemen, the opposition kept on asking why other things are not banned, but we are going to restrict the esports and its promotion and prevent the further harms first, and then put the regulations on others too. And the best government can make, this is the best choice that the government can make in the status quo, using it as a stepping stone for the later on to help all these kids from getting addicted to these games. And ladies and gentlemen, if it is a bad industry, it should be banned. So the opposition has stated that we should use the tax of the industry's benefit and then prevent the further addiction. Ladies and gentlemen, we also see this as a huge contradiction. It is not solving a problem. They're trying to promote the game and get all the effects the addictive problems, and then do nothing, only caring about money and its development. The opposition's huge double stance in this case, and being irresponsible of making the companies to keep on with it when they all have the problems. So moving on to the second fundamental question, what is the role of the government? Ladies and gentlemen, we have clearly proved through the examples, the brothers killing their babies, and second, their own baby brothers, and second, the teens killing moms because they are blocking them to play the games, and third, dying by playing games for so long. So ladies and gentlemen, these examples all show how game addicts become the social harm and not being able to make a rational decision. The opposition has failed to link how children are so responsible and wise that they can tell the difference between the dreams and the reality. All they gave was this very generalization that you do not want to become a soccer player just because a person around you wants to be a soccer player. How can this justify the problem when we see that this is the 10th most favorable job in the status quo of the primary students, ladies and gentlemen? Again, the opposition denied all the cases from the government, how we could promote the esports and as we go on and also have the harms to the society. The opposition made the major contradiction, supporting esports and even showing benefits and saying children are wise enough to be lured, now telling to just spend it to the teenagers. We see a huge fall in this link, and who would you go for, the contradictory opposition or the government? We beg to propose. Thank you.
자, 그러면 본격적으로 탑 스피커 부분부터 시상을 하겠습니다. 탑 스피커 3위는 예선까지의 개인 성적으로 선정을 했습니다.
We will now move on to the top speaker awards. We are awarding the 3 top speakers in this tournament based on accumulated individual speaker points.
이 부분 시상은 GFN 광주 영어방송 김재규 사장과 전남대학교 언어교육원 안병규 원장께서 해주시겠습니다. 두 분은 무대 위로 자리해 주시기 바랍니다.
This award will be presented by President Kim Jae-kyu of the GFN Gwangju English Broadcasting Station and Director An Byung-kyu of the Jeonnam National University Language Education Center.
수상자들은 시상 후에 무대 좌측으로 이동을 해서 계속해서 축하를 해주시기 바랍니다.
Can we please have the awardees come to the front and left of the stage?
먼저 중학생부 탑 스피커 3위 시상이 있겠습니다. 탑 스피커 3위에게는 상장과 부상으로 장학금 20만 원이 수여됩니다.
We will now begin by recognizing the third top speaker. The third top speaker will be given an award certificate and prize money in the amount of 200,000 won.
제3회 광주광역시 전국 청소년 영어 토론대회 탑 스피커 부문 중학생부 3위.
The third top speaker award of the third Gwangju Youth English Debate Championships goes to
양혜원. 축하합니다. 무대 위로 자리해 주세요. 양혜원. 이 학생은 제3회 광주광역시 전국 청소년 영어 토론대회 중학생부 탑 스피커 3위로 입상하였기에 상장을 수여합니다. 2012년 9월 9일 광주 영어방송 사장, 전남대학교 언어교육원장. 축하드립니다. 여러분 힘찬 박수로 축하해 주시기 바랍니다.
Congratulations. Please give the awardee a big round of applause.
네, 축하합니다. 무대 한쪽에 잠깐 자리해 주시고요. 영어 토론 대회 탑 스피커 부문 중학생부 2위.
The second top speaker award of the third Gwangju Youth English Debate Championships goes to
축하합니다. 진소윤 학생. 진소윤 학생이 아마 먼저 자리를 뜬 것 같습니다. 아쉽게도 오늘 시상식에는 참여하지 못했는데요. 저희가 개인적으로 후에 상장을 전해드리도록 하겠습니다. 탑 스피커 1위에게는 상장과 부상으로 장학금 50만 원이 수여됩니다.
Next, we will announce the top speaker. The top speaker will be given an award certificate and prize money in the amount of 500,000 won.
제3회 광주광역시 전국 청소년 영어 토론대회 탑 스피커 부문 중학생부 1위.
The top speaker award of the 3rd Gwangju Youth English Debate Championships goes to
박지윤. 축하합니다. 네, 박지윤 학생도 개인 사정으로 인해 오늘 시상식에 참여하지 못했습니다. 저희가 후에 시상을 하도록 하겠습니다. 자, 탑스피커 한 분밖에 없어서요. 우리 학생을 가운데로 무대로 좀 자리를 해주시고 기념사진을 찍도록 하겠습니다. 제가 세 분이 함께 찍으려고 했는데 우리 양혜원 학생만 기념사진 촬영하겠습니다. 우리 부모님들이나 또 친구분들 자랑스럽게 포즈를 취해주시면 되겠습니다. 축하합니다. 다시 한번 여러분 축하의 박수 부탁드리겠습니다. 네, 이제 중학생부 본상 시상을 하도록 하겠습니다.
Next, we will announce the break awards.
자, 먼저 중학생부 3위 시상을 하도록 하겠습니다. 3위의 영광은 두 팀에게 돌아갑니다.
We will now award the 2 semi-finalist teams for this tournament.
이 부분은 광주광역시 교육청 오호성 장학관님께서 해주시겠습니다. 무대 위로 자리해 주시기 바랍니다. 제3회 광주광역시 전국 청소년 영어 토론대회 중학생부 3위.
The semi-finalist teams of the middle school division are
Gossamer and Lumens. 축하합니다. 무대 위로 올라와 주세요. 제3회 광주광역시 전국 청소년 영어 토론대회 중학생부 3위 정은영. 이 학생은 제3회 광주광역시 전국 청소년 영어 토론대회 중학생부 3위로 입상하였기에 상장을 수여합니다. 2012년 9월 9일 광주광역시 교육감. 축하합니다. 제3회 광주광역시 전국 청소년 영어 토론대회 중학생부 3위 편도영. 이하 내용은 같습니다. 축하합니다. 제3회 광주광역시 전국 청소년 영어 토론대회 중학생부 3위 송지현. 이하 내용은 같습니다. 축하합니다. 네, 축하합니다. 잠깐 무대에 한쪽에 자리해 주시기 바랍니다. 양혜원 학생 앞으로 나와주세요. 네, 이하 내용은 같습니다. 축하합니다. 중학생부 3위 변유정. 이하 내용은 같습니다. 축하합니다. 중학생부 3위 김세현. 이하 내용은 같습니다. 축하합니다. 네, 축하합니다. 로맨스 팀, 가스멀 팀 아주 잘 해주셨습니다. 예, 이제 들어가 주셔도 좋습니다. 자, 중학생부 결승에 오른 두 팀은 무대 위로 올라와 주시기 바랍니다. 저희가 1위 팀을 먼저 발표하겠습니다. 1위 팀을 먼저 발표하면 나머지 한 팀이 자동으로 2위 팀이 되겠죠. 저희 검은색 양복을 입고 있는 조커 팀, 그리고 한 팀은 베리타스 팀이죠. 예, 과연 어떤 팀이 1위를 차지했을까요? 제가 발표를 하도록 하겠습니다. 중학생부 1위 팀에게는 교육과학기술부 장관상 그리고 트로피, 부상으로 장학금 200만 원이 주어집니다.
The champion of the middle school division will receive an award certificate from the Minister of Education and Science Technology, a trophy, and prize money in the amount of 2 million won.
제3회 광주광역시 전국 청소년 영어 토론대회 중학생부 1위.
The champions of the middle school division of the 3rd Gwangju Youth English Debate Championships are
6대 3으로
with a split decision of 6-3.
우승팀은 축하합니다. 조커팀 축하드리겠습니다.
Congratulations.
네, 그리고 준우승 팀은 베리타스 팀이 되겠습니다. 베리타스 팀도 축하드리겠습니다. 먼저 1위 팀 시상을 하겠습니다. 제3회 광주광역시 전국 청소년 영어 토론대회 중학생부 1위 강주현. 이 학생은 제3회 광주광역시 전국 청소년 영어 토론대회 중학생부 1위로 입상하였기에 상장을 수여합니다. 2012년 9월 9일 교육과학기술부 장관. 여러분 힘찬 축하의 박수 부탁드리겠습니다.
Please give another big round of applause to our awardees.
제3회 광주광역시 전국 청소년 영어 토론대회 중학생부 1위 이동주. 이하 내용은 같습니다. 제3회 광주광역시 전국 청소년 영어 토론대회 중학생부 1위 문재현. 이하 내용은 같습니다. 축하합니다. 네, 진심으로 축하드립니다. 계속해서 2위 시상이 있겠습니다. 2위 팀에게는 광주시장상과 트로피, 부상으로 장학금 100만 원이 수여되겠습니다.
The grand finalist team of the middle school division will receive an award certificate from the Gwangju Metropolitan City Office, a trophy, and prize money in the amount of 1 million won.
제3회 광주광역시 전국 청소년 영어 토론대회 중학생부 2위 황재원. 위 학생은 제3회 광주광역시 전국 청소년 영어 토론대회 중학생부 2위로 입상하였기에 상장을 수여합니다. 2012년 9월 9일 광주광역시장. 축하합니다. 제3회 광주광역시 전국 청소년 영어 토론대회 중학생부 2위 류병연. 네, 이하 내용은 같습니다. 네, 축하드리고요. 제3회 광주광역시 전국 청소년 영어 토론대회 중학생부 2위 장한별. 축하합니다. 네, 다시 한번 준우승을 차지한 우리 베리타스 팀에게도 힘찬 박수 부탁드리고요. 지금까지 시상을 도와주신 2015 광주 하계 유니버시아드 지원과 주남식 과장님께도 감사의 인사를 부탁을 드리겠습니다.
Please give another warm round of applause to the awardees and another one to the head of support services division.
네, 수상하신
Mr.
분들
주남식. 모두
모두 진심으로 축하드립니다. 마지막으로 수상자 전원의 기념 촬영이 있겠습니다. 다음에 다시 같이 찍겠습니다. 먼저 우리 수상자들 먼저 찍고요. 다음에 저희 운영위원분들 그리고 시상자분들 같이 사진을 찍도록 하겠습니다. 물심양면으로 도와주신 모든 분들 다시 한번 감사를 드리겠습니다.
We would like to thank everyone who have shown their interest and
볼까요? 다들 이렇게 멋있게 하고 계시는데요. 이게 자신의 포즈를 하고 안 맞죠? 다시 한번요. 하나, 둘, 셋. 예. 네, 다시 한번 여러분 박수 한번 부탁드리겠습니다. 네. 수상하신 모든 분들 진심으로 축하드리고요. 도와주신 모든 분들, 함께 해주신 모든 분들 진심으로 감사드립니다.